This might be a bold prediction, but it's possible that Joe Biden may not run for the general election in November in the United States. He's contracted COVID, and that is kind of a get out clause for him. It's convenient, it saves his ego, because prior to catching COVID very recently, he said if he had any health ailments, he would consider dropping out. And so this is the blessing in disguise. I don't know whether it's planned or it's just divine providence, divine intervention, but there we are. And so this is really good, because if you care about democracy and you care about the encroachment of Trump around the corner, you want your best chance against him. Biden, the man who's literally disintegrating before your very eyes, is not the best bet. So that's one prediction. One prediction I've had from prior to the beginning of this channel is that the Labour Party in the UK, as headed by Keir Starmer, are completely useless. They're just going to be tools of the establishment. Case in point. So very recently, Labour Party, they enacted in order to resolve the issues within the overcrowded prisons, to let out 1/3 of the people who have been imprisoned for the most minor offences. And this is encouraging, because there's a proportion of people there that shouldn't be there. There's definitely a proportion of people that should be there, but for minor crimes, for people who've been, petty crimes, people just, shoplifted in a cost of living crisis. Let's not forget some of the most highest objects that have been stolen for shops include things like Calpol. Now, who would need Calpol if it wasn't for someone's child? So clearly, there's a necessity for there to be some form of retribution or distribution of resources, so that everyone has a chance in life rather than just the super rich. And so that's reassuring. But then you hear today environmental activists being put in prison for 5 years, not for protesting, for merely planning to protest in their own way. And the charge is insane. It's like the conspiracy to create a public nuisance. They haven't caused it yet, but that's and this is kind of like, this is playing to the fiddle of the far right, playing to the fiddle of the so-called anti-eco activists. It's psychotic, considering that we need more than ever a consensus of people working together towards improving our ecological situation. And you've got Labour just leaning into the far right. It was that somebody, an infiltrator from the Sun, who was part of these meetings, that was the grass, that was the mole. And so that's, how does it make sense? These people received 5 years or more imprisonment, when the average time in prison for being a violent person is between 1 to 3 years. Make that make sense. A thief, somewhere like 1 to 2 years. This is obviously a making an example. It's the way the Lannisters would make an example, by putting people's heads and forks, So this is just yet another example of Labour being a spineless coward, just falling into the trap led and designed by the right wing. Not surprised there. And we're going to see more of this. We're going to see more of Labour trying to give off the aesthetics of, let's say, being on the right side. For example, you had David Lammy saying we want to call for a ceasefire, meanwhile giving handshakes, warm handshakes, to Benjamin Netanyahu. And of course, it's merely a proclamation of a desire. We want a ceasefire. There's no conditions attached to it. There's no withdrawing of arms supplies to the nation that is committing a genocide, which, according to the Lancet, a medical journal, you've got your professionals coming up with a figure of 186,000 to 200,000 currently dead because, of course, a large number of people who are under the rubble. You've got a large number of people who are suffering ailments by mere virtue of not having access to hospitals, which have been destroyed. The healthcare system in Palestine is completely obliterated. You've got carte blanche freedom to just attack civilians at will. You got this situation regarding a person with Down syndrome, according to the BBC, was lonely when he passed away, which is a sickening headline. When you realise that actually that headline obscured the fact that this person was killed by an IDF dog, which mauled at him, and Israeli soldiers separated him from his family. A week later, he was decomposing. This is a sickening system of violence. So, I don't condone what happened to Trump, but systemic violence is far more serious than violence towards a single person. Just a systemic injustice towards those ecological activists. It's far more violent. Thousands upon thousands of people have been killed in just the last several months alone. And yet you want us to care about a single celebrity in the United States, or the aesthetics of being nice? And this is the politics that we are in. We're in an idiocracy. We are in a situation where the vibes matter more than the actual systems at play. And if we really want to distill politics in a nutshell, Labour only care about the vibes, the aesthetics. They don't go far enough. The right wing only care about culture wars. And we need a movement that actually looks at the system at large, looks at the sheer violence of the system, because it's not fit for purpose. And we also got Labour and the systems that Labour are, part of, that are supporting, are pure idiocy that are pushed onto them, thrusted onto them by the US establishment. You got Labour's defence ministers talking about China as a threat to the UK. Let's be very serious. China does not even think about the UK. The UK is a mere fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the power it once was. The only reason why the UK has any power is because it's been, given it by the US. It's given a mascot. It's given the role of a mascot. The real threat that China may pose to it is the US, and only if the US is the one that strikes first. Because people don't realize this, and this is my crux, my issue with John Mearsheimer, who I really respect, who I really believe in a lot of what he says. But I think he misunderstands the culture of China, of Chinese politics. China is not an imperialist state in the way that United States are. They're not not there to encroach upon territories in order to control them. They're more like a trading nation. They care more about stability. They're not about controlling the sentiments of Middle Eastern nations that they has a favorable role, because the more you even try to control, the more opposition you'll get. This is something that the US and the UK have not understood. Maybe by sheer ego, maybe by sheer idiocy. Every time we've got any kind of terrorist movement in the world, it's a response to Western foreign policy intervention for the most part. ISIS would have not been created if it wasn't for the illegal invasion of Iraq and the power vacuum that was created. You wouldn't have the Taliban if the CIA backed and supported the Mujahideen to fight against the Soviets in Afghanistan. You wouldn't have Hamas as strong as it is if it wasn't for Netanyahu. He literally boasted about supporting, facilitating Hamas because they were a dividing kind of crowbar against, solidarity of the Palestinian people. If there was solidarity amongst Palestinian people, they'd have a stronger chance for Palestinian statehood. And he doesn't want that. This is an ideologue. This is a true fundamentalist. People are focused on the chess pieces being moved around and not on the real power players that are really causing the real systematic violence. Netanyahu is one of them. Tony Blair is another one. Keir Starmer, obviously, he's a tool, but he's being controlled by whoever is in power in the US. So let's be looking at systems, focusing less on these idiots who are mere puppets of the system, and move on forward. This is why the Labour Party will not do what it needs to do, and it will give out the red carpet for the right wing. Mark my words, Nigel Farage will grow in power as Labour try to play both sides, tries to create the aesthetics of being on the good side, whilst at the same time being half-assed about implementing any kind of real systematic change. Actually, he's not doing any true systematic change. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated. Thank you.